Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and seeing one headline that changes everything. Chinese ships are moving closer to Taiwan, American forces are on alert, and the most important island in the world is suddenly at the center of a crisis that could drag the United States into a war it is not ready to fight. This is not a distant story. This is not just another headline from Asia. This is the one conflict that could hit American power, American technology, American markets, and American families all at the same time. Taiwan may look small on a map, but it sits at the center of the most dangerous triangle on Earth: China, the United States, and the future of global power. And right now, Beijing is testing how far it can go before Washington is forced to respond. The problem is simple but terrifying. China does not need to invade Taiwan tomorrow to create panic. It only needs to move step by step, ship by ship, aircraft by aircraft, until the world gets used to seeing Taiwan surrounded. That is how pressure becomes normal. That is how a red line slowly disappears. And that is how a superpower can change the balance of the world without firing the first shot. For years, Beijing has said Taiwan is part of China. Taiwan rejects that claim and governs itself as a democracy. The United States does not officially recognize Taiwan as an independent country, but it sells Taiwan weapons and warns against any forced change to the status quo. That is the dangerous gray zone. Nobody wants to say the word war, but everyone is preparing for the possibility. And now China is using that gray zone as a battlefield. Chinese warships, aircraft, Coast Guard vessels, and pressure operations have become part of the daily reality around Taiwan. Each movement may look small when seen alone, but together they create something much bigger: a slow-motion blockade rehearsal. Beijing is learning how Taiwan reacts. It is learning how fast Washington responds. It is learning how markets behave. It is learning how far it can push before anyone pushes back. That is why this moment matters. If China moves on Taiwan, America faces one of the hardest decisions in its modern history. Does Washington defend Taiwan and risk direct war with China? Does it stay back and watch a democratic partner fall under pressure? Does it send weapons, ships, sanctions, warnings, or troops? Every option is dangerous. Every option has a cost. And every delay gives Beijing more room to shape the battlefield. This is why the title says America is not ready. Not because America is powerless. The United States still has the strongest military on Earth, the largest network of alliances, advanced submarines, aircraft carriers, missile systems, satellites, and bases across the Pacific. But power on paper is not the same as readiness in a real crisis. A war over Taiwan would not look like Iraq. It would not look like Afghanistan. It would not be fought against a weaker enemy far from its home. It would be fought near China's coast, inside China's preferred battlefield, against one of the most powerful militaries on Earth. That changes everything. China has spent years building missiles designed to threaten American ships. It has built a larger navy, expanded air power, increased pressure around the first island chain, and prepared for the exact scenario Washington fears most: a fast crisis where China moves before America can organize a full response. Beijing understands distance, it understands timing, it understands political hesitation, and it understands that America is stretched across too many fronts. Ukraine is still draining attention and weapons. The Middle East keeps pulling Washington back into crisis. Iran, Israel, the Red Sea, Russia, NATO, inflation, debt, political division, and election pressure all compete for American focus. China sees that, Xi Jinping sees that. And every rival of the United States understands the same truth. The best time to test a superpower is when that superpower is distracted. That is the nightmare scenario. A Taiwan crisis would not only be military, it would be economic from the first hour. Taiwan is central to the global semiconductor supply chain. The chips made there help power phones, cars, computers, data centers, weapon systems, artificial intelligence, and the digital economy Americans depend on every day. If Taiwan is blockaded, attacked, or destabilized, the shock could move through the global economy faster than most people can imagine. Factories could slow down, technology stocks could fall, supply chains could freeze, prices could rise, companies could panic, and ordinary Americans could suddenly discover that a conflict across the Pacific affects the car they drive, the phone they use, the job they depend on, and the prices they pay. This is the part most people miss. Taiwan is not just an island. Taiwan is a pressure point in the modern world. Whoever controls the future of Taiwan gains influence over the Pacific, over advanced technology, and over the credibility of American power. That is why China keeps pressing. Beijing does not have to launch a full invasion to win. It could begin with a quarantine, a customs inspection zone, cyber attacks, missile exercises, Coast Guard harassment, airspace pressure, naval movements, or a partial blockade. Each step could be presented as limited. Each step could be framed as internal Chinese security. Each step could force Washington to decide whether this is serious enough to risk war. That is the strategy. China can create a crisis that is too aggressive to ignore, but too ambiguous to answer with full force. And that is where America becomes vulnerable. If Washington overreacts, it may be accused of starting a war. If Washington underreacts, China may take more. If America sends ships, Beijing may surround them with more forces. If America sends warnings, China may ignore them. If America imposes sanctions, global markets may crash. If America hesitates, allies across Asia may begin to wonder whether U.S. protection still means anything. Japan will watch, South Korea will watch, the Philippines will watch, Australia will watch, India will watch. Every American ally in the Pacific will ask the same question. If Washington cannot stop China at Taiwan, can Washington stop China anywhere? That is why this crisis is bigger than Taiwan. It is a test of the entire American-led order in Asia. For decades, America's presence in the Pacific kept China contained, protected trade routes, reassured allies, and allowed Taiwan to survive under pressure. But China is no longer the China of the past. It is richer, stronger, more ambitious, and more willing to challenge the rules that limited its power. Xi Jinping does not want China to remain trapped inside an American security system. He wants China to become the dominant force in Asia. Taiwan stands directly in the way of that ambition. If Taiwan stays free and protected, America remains the key power in the Pacific. If Taiwan falls, the map changes. China breaks through the first island chain. American credibility suffers a historic blow, and every country in the region begins adjusting to a new reality. That is why Beijing's pressure is not random. It is strategic. It is patient. It is designed to make Taiwan feel isolated and America feel uncertain. And uncertainty is the most dangerous weapon in this crisis. Taiwan needs to believe America will help. China needs to believe America might fight. America needs to convince both sides without triggering the war it is trying to prevent. That is an extremely difficult balance. One wrong signal can cause panic. One weak signal can invite aggression. One military accident can start an escalation no leader fully controls. A Chinese aircraft flying too close. A Taiwanese radar warning. A Coast Guard collision. A missile test near the island. A cyber attack blamed on Beijing. A U.S. warship challenged at sea. Any of these could become the spark. And once the spark happens, events may move faster than politics. Washington may not have days to debate. It may have hours. Markets may not wait for explanations. Allies may demand answers. China may try to create facts on the ground before America can respond. Taiwan may mobilize. The Pentagon may move forces. And suddenly the world may be watching the most dangerous U.S.-China confrontation in modern history. This is why Americans need to pay attention now, before the crisis becomes impossible to control. Because the question is not only whether China will invade Taiwan, the question is whether China can slowly surround Taiwan, pressure Taiwan, exhaust Taiwan, and make the world accept Chinese dominance without a formal invasion. That may be the real plan. Not one dramatic attack, but constant pressure until Taiwan's freedom becomes harder and harder to defend. And if that works, the consequences will not stop in Asia. Russia will learn from it. Iran will learn from it. Every rival of America will learn that pressure works when Washington is overloaded. The world will become more dangerous because enemies will believe America can be pushed back if the pressure is applied in the right place, at the right time, with the right level of ambiguity. That is the future Beijing may be testing. A future where America still talks like a superpower, but its rivals move faster than its decisions. A future where alliances depend not on promises, but on whether Washington is willing to act when the moment comes. A future where the world's most important conflicts are not always declared, but slowly built through pressure, intimidation, and fear. Taiwan is the warning sign. If China moves too far, America may have to choose between war and humiliation. If America does not prepare, that choice becomes even worse. And if Washington misreads Beijing's intentions, the Pacific could become the center of the next global crisis. So watch Taiwan, watch the ships, watch the aircraft, watch the language coming from Beijing, watch how Washington responds. Because wars do not always begin with a massive invasion. Sometimes they begin with a test a small move, a new patrol, a blocked route, a warning ignored, a line crossed so slowly that the world only understands it after it is too late. And right now, China is testing the line. Taiwan is the target. America is the obstacle. And the whole world is waiting to see who moves first. If you found this analysis useful, hit the like button, subscribe to State of War, and turn on notifications, because what happens next around Taiwan could shape the future of American power. This is Anna, and I'll see you in the next report.